In this project we look at BlackBox Flight Recorder themed utility cases. Included in the downloadable files is the Fusion 360 parametric CAD file, which means you can create your own customized case. Here's a BlackBox Flight Recorder style case for my dive torches, finished off with German text warning not to open. Let's have a look at one being made. Ideally you will have an AMS unit to allow for multicolor printing. The lid has a stylized inlay which has been modeled in Fusion and will automatically resize with changes to the size of the container. As you can see, the design utilizes tree supports on the latching features and box is printed in place. The latches are printed separately. Even if you don't know how to use Fusion 360 properly, you should be able to make basic changes to the model by following this video. I have set up a range of user parameters. The first one is the size of the corner fillet radius. By default it is 5mm, but you can make it bigger or smaller. Just be careful, too much of a radical change may have unexpected consequences, and if you push it too far the model may break. Just restore the setting to correct the model. The next parameter we will look at is the overall case height. If you change it to 50mm, then the height of the top and bottom sections will be 25mm. You can print as large as your printer can handle. Next you can alter the size of the bottom case internal lip, which might be useful to retain an insert, for example. A similar parameter is the case length. Once again, you can print as long as your printer can handle. You may need to also consider the additional sizes of any supports you print with. I've turned on the cross-section function so that you can see the effect of the next parameter. The case top and bottom thickness can be made thicker or thinner. 1.8mm is a good lightweight case, where 2mm is a little sturdier, and you can make it ridiculously thick if you want. Remember, you have the inlaid artwork on the lid, so don't make it too thin. Similarly, the case wall thickness controls the strength of the case. To make a stronger case, make this thicker as well as the top and bottom thickness. The case width parameter changes the basic size of the box. Now, before I lose you with all the technical CAD talk, let's remind ourselves what we are printing. The artwork is preset and you can choose the colors in your slicer. If you don't want the artwork, just make it the same color as your case. You can add text to the case in your slicer, which is what I did with the Torch BlackBoxes. There are parameters to adjust the hinge tightness and adjust the slide friction. Now back into Fusion 360. This next parameter controls how stiff the hinge turns. The more clearance, the freer it rotates. 0.4mm is a good default setting to start with. Hinge side clearance can also affect how freely the case opens. If you have a stiff case, you can make the clearance larger. We will come back to the slide extra clearance parameter later. The wall recess depth controls how deep the recess in the walls are. If you make them too deep, they will break through the wall thickness. Due to the way the locking features are printed and supported, they can be a bit rough. Some cleanup will be required to remove excess filament. This is where the slide extra clearance parameter comes in. If your slides are too sticky over the locking mechanisms, you can print slides with slightly more clearance. I would suggest 0.1mm, but these are easy to reprint to get the fit just right. Now we should save the file. And we can export the slides. Make sure you select step file type, then give the file a sensible name. I will call this file slides, but will also add the detail that it is without any extra offset. I might as well export another set of slides with extra offset clearance. Edit the slide extra clearance parameter and set it to 0.1mm. Export the file again, taking note that this file has the extra clearance. Now we want to turn off the slides and turn on everything for the case. The top artwork is inlaid, so we need to make that visible as well. Before we export the case, let's change the size of the case. From the user parameters, let's make the case 140mm long, 50mm wide and 40mm high overall. Export the case. We might as well add the size of the case to the file name. It will make life easier when we have heaps of different size cases. Now let's import the file into Bamboo Studio. First thing, let's lay it flat. You can hit the auto orientate to manually move it on the build plate to your liking. Okay, zoom in and we will start to add some color to this project. Click on the object, select the Object tab and change the color. I am using orange to make it look like a BlackBox Flight Recorder. Next, select Paint, the white filament and the paint bucket, and fill in the colors for the top artwork inlay. Now let's look at some global settings. in strength change the infill pattern to gyroid. Under support, select enable support, tree order, on build plate only, critical regions and remove small overhangs. As the trees are close to the case, I will make them the same color of the case to avoid any color bleed. Now let's slice the plate. It looks okay to me. The artwork seems to print out okay on the first few layers, the trees look okay. Now onto the slides, add another build plate and import the slides with no extra offset. Split the slides into objects. And auto-orientate and position them. Slice the plate. They look okay to me. Time to do a bit of housekeeping. Add a name to each of the build plates. I'm going to cheat here. I'm going to copy the file name and edit and reuse it. When naming the slide plate, I'm going to notate that these are without any extra clearance. Even though I might not need the slides with extra clearance, I'm going to import them now, so I have the option to quickly print looser fitting slides if the originals are too tight. The process is exactly the same, only noting on the build plate that these slides have 0.1 mm extra clearance per side. Unfortunately, you do need rudimentary skills in Fusion, but hopefully this video has given you confidence to give it a go. For a small amount of effort you now have the ability to quickly and easily make custom size cases.